my name is and I'm working as project manager for the Suitability ratio. And I have the pleasure and honor to work with the Soundscape partner with the implementation of the project. So let me take this opportunity to congratulate you for this very successful implementation. And also to wish you all my best for the remaining part of the implementation. And also to wish a lot of success to the Rijeka. For the discussions with the partner, I'm going to present you a few slides that will focus on the program, focus on the project, and will give you insights into the next program period. Of course, it's like natural that whenever there is a question or you would like to tell me the comment, please feel free to interrupt and we can discuss it and solve the issue. And now I'm going to start my presentation. So, I'm going to start by telling you that Programme Interreg Italy covers 2 member states and a number of EUSAIR projects with 800 project partners. The outputs mean that the final concrete products or the final concrete achievements are very diverse and spectrum. So they include knowledge and information systems, they include policy, strategies, action plans. They include new services, terminology, product strategies, and governance tools, and they include technology transfer action, as well as joint technical studies and management plans, of course, awareness of action of citizenship. So you can see that the rate is quite large, and it is meant to, let's say, be able to produce a very diverse area of results, and all our projects via their implementation and their objectives are contributing to that. In this respect, it is very important to note that the post of the book, so I should continue the presentation as mentioned before. So by let's say going into detail or providing some details as to the project, and this is about Priority Access 3, which is environmental and natural heritage. And the specific objective of the Priority Access is to contribute to protect and restore biodiversity. And we can see the project Soundscape, this is the main objective selected, which is to assess the impact of underwater environmental noise on the marine fauna and in general on the ecosystem. And the creation of saltwater monitoring map is, of course, in a very good position to bring a significant contribution to this specific objective. This project is it consists of a project partnership of 7 project partners that will be included. For Italian, Croatian, it spans over a duration of almost 3 years, because it started in January 2019 and it ended in November 2021. And of course, this is due to the strong impact that COVID pandemic had on the implementation, and which of course put on hold or delayed a lot of action, following to which the project had to ask for a prolongation, which was effectively used so that the current implementation status is, let's say, an appropriate one when it comes to the current base, and therefore there are good prerequisites for prerequisite for the continuation of this project. Therefore, I will continue with the next part, and while the overall objective it is very clearly set, it is very important to note that the organization's objectives, there have been specific objectives that were considered by the project in this respect, in order to make the achievement of the general objective plausible. And I'm going to present this to you. The next part of the presentation is focusing on the implementation stage and on the fact that the project is contributing to the four pillars of the strategy: blue growth, connecting to the region, connecting the region, environmental quality, and sustainable tourism. So along with clients, we have contribution either by strengthening the technical and scientific capacity, establishment of integrated maritime policy. We have contribution to give the general ecological knowledge, and we have an estimation of the contribution of migration load to general underwater soundscape interregional resources including political strategy. This is reflected in the fact that work package 3 is already complete, and work package 4 and 5 already indicate a high degree of achievement, close to 80%, with work package 4 largely effectively contributing to outreach of the guidance objectives. It is very important that the project now focuses on sustainability and sustainability during the remaining period. We can continue by saying that this sustainability is going to be seen across knowledge and experience of the underwater monitoring and of all potential target groups, data updates in terms of all stakeholders. Very close to the Northern Adriatic model can be applied to Natura 2005, and the information integrated in the data portal will be really accessible to users. So all these are directions that can be used in order to assure this very important central area. In terms of the target group mentioned, there is a good rate of achievement, and also there is a good spending rate, currently 78%, which means that again there are good foundations for the project to continue the implementation. I can continue by giving you a few insights in the next program period, but before this again, all the data that I have here on this is for a very good implementation, for a very successful cross-border development of the work and of the deliverables, which is a very important aspect when it comes to the program and the project itself. And I shall continue with the program as mentioned. So, as I said, this last part of the presentation focuses on the next program period. At this moment, the program strategy has been decided, and there will be support for the promotion of sustainable economic development, including conservation policy, protection of natural assets, climate adaptation strategies and mitigation measures, valorization of cultural heritage, implementation of sustainable cross-border mobility solutions. So we can see that these four directions refer to innovation for adaptation, cultural heritage, and mobility. What does this mean? This means that also here there have been a lot of working groups. There have been 10 task force meetings, which means that the decision maker, which is the task force, has been very actively working on getting the results and making the program on track. really very good end result that the first half of the implementation program in place with the definition of intervention logic, priorities, specific objectives and actions that takes into account both the area socioeconomic analysis, which is based on real need and real analysis of the area, takes into account the consultation webinars, so the needs that our project and stakeholders have expressed, and reconcile them with the regulation. And in this respect, what we are having is, what will be having, we're having program objectives and specific objectives for each of the four dimensions. For now, there is some project objective 2, which means greenhouse carbon reduction for net zero carbon planning, with specific objective 2.7, which is enhancing protection and conservation of nature. So this is something that is not going to change. Now, the point of interaction for you can see that when it comes to the topic of cross-border cooperation, we can range for developing integrated strategies, to supporting biodiversity studies, to providing useful support for integrated management of mosquitoes and river environment, and then having a cross-border monitoring system and shared platform. So all these, I suggest that become reflection points for you for the next project and for designing or thinking of the next program period. I would like to stop here, and again, thank you for your attention, and looking forward to seeing you in our next program. Thank you. Bye. Hello.
Czekam prezentację. Da mi ima problema ili? Može? Taj popravi slajd. Imate moju prezentaciju. Ovo je samo dođe. Ima sljedeći slajd. Hello, good afternoon. All of you presented this in the meeting room, and also participants attended the meeting through Skype software communication. So, as I want first of all to thank very nice words from Anka from Management Authority and Joint Secretariat, and we also hope that we'll continue with the collaboration between Italian and Croatian institutions on achievement good environmental status of descriptor 11 concerning marine referral marine strategy framework directive. So just this is a project devoted underwater noise. So just want to show just general information about this project. Yeah, okay. Yes, this is just generally why we start to apply for this program, Descriptor 11, Marine Strategy Framework Directive, because in the past, it's common word is that underwater is calm and without noise. But today we know that the situation is completely opposite. So generally, we have three types of sounds in the sea. This one, geophony, produced by geophysical properties of marine environment, as for example, waves, currents, maybe rains, and so on. Biophony, as this sound produced by animals in marine environment for communication, for orientation, and so on. And there is a third one that is anthropogeny sound, and we call noise. It means these two, noise, geophony, and biophony, they are natural, and anthropogeny noise is produced by a human. Concerning this topic, we recently saw more publications about influence of anthropogeny noise, influence on the different activity of human on the marine life, marine diversity, biodiversity, and in general marine ecosystem. Let's please next slide. Okay. So we can see on the monitoring underwater noise is I told that it's relevant for status of marine environment. And you can see on this slide that's natural sound in the marine, what it produced, and as you can see on this picture that it can be sea animals produce coral reefs, rain, waves, earthquake, and on other part of slide, you can see human activities, how can they influence on marine environment, and you can see traffic, fishing, different types of sonar, basic investigation, file driving. Recently, this is some kind of other construction in the sea, or maybe during building bridges in the sea, piling. So this is published in New York and all 2021, and Soundscape is ambient sound in terms of its spatial, temporal, and frequency attributes and types of sources controlling the sound field. So that you see that human activities, different than influence on the situation, I mean, underwater noise in the sea, in the Adriatic Sea especially, because Adriatic Sea is a very shallow sea, deeply penetrated in European land, and there are quite a big traffic from the Otranto, from south part to the biggest ports in Adriatic that are located in the north part. So that we can see that also we use also in the fisheries. So on this slide you can see that from evident human activities we just copy part of the Adriatic Sea, and you can see that main route of longitudinal route from the south east to southwest in the Adriatic Sea. You can see this main route by different type of big ships, and they are produce quite a lot underwater noise. And another side, the Adriatic Sea, I said, that it's very sensitive, vulnerable, and it's part of them are nominated as Natura 2000, and also this coastal, marine and coastal protected areas, and also it's the health part of the region. And we know that Italy and Croatia are very developed touristic countries, and there are lots of recreational boats, increased also passenger boats, vessels in the Adriatic Sea, and I think one of the most products of the noise in the north part of the Adriatic Sea belongs to marine, different types of marine fisheries. So this slide show on 3 different slides show that the production of hearing ranges of marine taxons. So you can see animals in the sea, they produce sound for, as I mentioned, communication and for just orientation in the sea. So up to slide, you can part of slide, you can see frequencies which use our marine taxa, and it's generally something less than you can see about 1.1 kilohertz and higher. And middle part of the slide, you can see that hearing of ranges, it's just start lower frequency, spectrum of frequency are wider, and the bottom part of this slide, you can see anthropogenic noise sources, and it means produced by different activity. You can see that different type of ships with different level and the frequency of the noise. So in these 3 sub-slide, you can conclude that human activities just influence on marine life, especially for marine sensitive animals. So just a slide from this publication, Water Soul 2021. They just study different studies, and you can see on slide on left side different influence of human activity on the marine life, marine animals. So you can see different influence of different type of activity. You can see, for example, vessel is one of the biggest influence other activities. So definitely, just we know today that anthropogenic noise very negatively affected marine animals and biodiversity, especially in a shallow and sensitive Adriatic Sea, and it's recognized by the Marine Strategy Framework Directive and Barcelona Convention. Just first Marine Strategy Framework Directive that issued in 2008, and that's quite a long document defined in different articles what they want to do and what they do in all European countries. Especially, the European countries want that our marine environment be in good environmental state. And all of these articles, you can see on this slide, just have one aim: achieve good environmental state. If yes, not achieved, apply measure at the part of marine to become yes. Or if yes achieved, take measures to make good environment status remain. So, final aim is that all our marine environment will be in a good status. In that sense, in 2017, number 845, that is adopted a revision of previous directive, and also it's adopted the decision number 848, which defined the operational part of marine strategy framework directive. It's methodology that's strategic approach to gas, and also because we need always to find what is some kind of measure when we achieve yes or not, and if not, what need to which kind of measure to applicate in this region. It's essentially that the TIPH has 6 years cycle, and this is on the right part of slide is the GIS 2000, and now it's in the second cycle, it's 2021 to 2026. Just first is that we assess what with our environment. Next is define ideal environmental status of seas, and then Article 10 set targets, and after that we monitor to see what really happened, and Article 13 of MSPT is identify and implement action needs. and it's repeated every 6 years. So conserving of energy in interaction in the sea, including the underwater noise. For the moment, for today, the main accent is to study underwater noise, and we have two types of underwater noise. The type is continuous noise, and another type is impulsive. So there is two different parts, but in practice we measure underwater sound by different instruments, and just we put instruments for a longer period, and very often we measure all sounds in the sea, and continuous low frequency noise is practically continuous. It depends, but the level is not the same, but all scattered, but impulsive noise, they are more, I think, seldom, but generally they have more energy and can be more dangerous than continuous frequency. So there are especially some construction in sea when they do, so they produce that impulsive noise, and just maybe time to say that in many European countries that there is no registration for impulsive noise. So to just register them, it's proposal government to adopt a register of impulsive noise. So in this moment, in Italy and in Croatia, there are initiatives and some discussion about adoption of law relating to the impulsive noise. We'll see what will happen with this, and when this law will be adopted. These criteria are basic for some kind of intervention for dealing with measures on the sea to protect the sea against anthropogenic loss. Also, Barcelona Convention, which is relevant for all countries bordering with the Mediterranean Sea, and they also have 11 some kind of descriptors, because the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, that's the name of defining parameters for good status of the environment, and in that descriptors, Barcelona Convention or IMAL, they use term objective indicator, and they are very similar also that descriptors in the European Union. So it's well-known application, integrated Mediterranean Sea and coastal monitoring and evaluation program, IMAS, defining all of these methods serving protecting Mediterranean Sea. So in international context, that's which are dealing with the influence of different human sources on marine environment. So there was several projects of P7, for example, and they mainly studied about problem with construction of ships or the propellers of ships, and also you can see one bias project, bias involved in 2003. Also on this right side, you can see more projects recently, from the beginning of 2018, and among them also is QuietMed and QuietMed 2. QuietMed from 2017 defined protocols and also some test cases measuring and interpretation of underwater noise. And 5.2, 2019-2020, they opted to implement just basic technological based on for adoption of a law relating register of marine. So you can see here, Jonas, Saturn, Yomopans also, and Rijeka Live is a project, and it means that interest for measuring of underwater noise relies recently. So Soundscape, yeah, we just one program, standard program of Interreg program Italy, Croatia, and as I'm told that almost duration of it is 3 years, almost 3 years, from the beginning of 2019 and the finish at the end of this month. Total budget you can see 2,100,000, 8 partners from Croatia, from Italy, and it covers specific objectives of the program. It's 3.2, contribute to protect and restore biodiversity. You can see on the name of institutions that in the blue is Croatia institutions, and in some kind of metal Italia. That's also in the brackets the whole package and the partner who is responsible. Main objectives, as we heard about that, that's the creation of a shared transnational institutional, technical, and scientific network for monitoring the underwater noise in Italian and Croatian part of the Adriatic Sea, because the Adriatic Sea is part of Mediterranean. And also evaluation of the impact of underwater noise on marine fauna and ecosystems in the study area, the 6 study status and Caretta. It's very sensitive species. They are live in Adriatic Sea, not part of Adriatic Sea, especially close to some of Croatian islands, Croatian, and that mainly they are live in that part of that sea, but you can find also in other Adriatic Sea. And also it's important, as Anka told, that the deployment, development, and implementation of tools is the maritime spatial planning for future mitigation measures. That's also the reason that we just all our product maps of underwater sound. It's average each month per year, and we put on that geoportal tools for MSP, and it can be useful for overlaying with the other maps which are necessary for analyzing of the influence of underwater noise to environment in the Adriatic Sea. So that's one of also objective is support to MSFD, that sector is 11 I talked before. And and I just want to that process of how to reach the marine good environmental status using Soundscape project. So first of all, we have monitoring. You will hear later more about that. Based on the monitoring data, which are average 20 seconds, and the put is the input data in a numerical modeling, also with data of temperature, salinity, the type of sediment, waves, and production of bathymetry, and as output results, a calibrated model, because our data we collected about underwater sound by our instruments on 9 different stations. So that integrated or calibrated model can produce a realistic map of underwater sound in all parts of Adriatic Sea. So after that, we get the results using these geospatial tools. Just we can evaluate of impact of underwater sound on the environment, and after that, we just based on these results we get by evaluation of impact, that we use the different mitigation scenarios for improvement of environment of North part of the Adriatic Sea, in main objective to achieve good and environmental state of North part of the Adriatic. At the end, I just show you this how looks one page from this tools for MSP, and you can see different layers, infrastructure in Adriatic Sea, in all parts, marinas, big ports, exploitation of gas, traffic routes, fisheries, also exploitation and fisheries, ships and so on. And based on these GIS tools, we can get help in marine spatial planning decision makers in usage of natural resources on sustainable way. So that's I think one of the biggest, largest achievement of project Soundscape. And that's all from my side. Thank you. Is there any question? If no question, we just proceed on the detail about achieved results on this 3 years long project. Thank you. Great.
Good afternoon. I will continue. My name is Hrvoje Mihajlović. I also work at the Institute of Oceanography and Fisheries, and I will continue with the presentation which is going to be focused on monitoring network deployment and data collection protocols that were done within this project. So the project, as Dado mentioned previously, consisted of a monitoring network, which had 9 stations operated by Italian and Croatian partners. These 9 stations were chosen in a way to represent the main ports, main traffic routes, to capture the soundscape of the Northern Adriatic in the best possible way, to be used both to analyze the measured data and to use them into calibration into numerical modeling. Next, please. So measurements within this project started in February and March 2020 and lasted until June and the beginning of July this year. The measurements were performed with the same instruments on all 9 locations, and data protocols and everything was defined homogeneously within the project. So the instruments were set to 48 kilohertz, 16-bit resolution, and 1 hour WAV file, which resulted altogether in about 30 terabytes of data when you look at all the stations. As I said, same instruments were used with the same protocols for mooring and for the recovery of the hydrophones, and the same protocol for data acquisition. And after each instrument recovery, data were stored at servers in Venice and Split. Next, please. Data processing was done on the server in Venice, and the web application, which was developed in Python, was within the project, was used to process the data. And the basic output results consisted of 1 second and 20-second SPL level values on 4 frequencies. 4 1/3 octave frequencies, a center that ported 63, 125, 250, and 4000 hertz. The first 2 frequencies are related to Marine Strategy Framework Directive, and the second 2 frequencies are more related to biology, and I think that you will get more info in the next presentation. And these data processing results were then used as an input in the calibration of the numerical model. And besides hydrophone measurements, which are taken on these stations, metadata were also stored on servers, and also vertical CTD profiles, which were done at the beginning and at the end of each deployment. Next, please. So this is the type of instrument that was used, that was purchased in the public procurement procedure within the project, and this instrument, as I said, measures with a frequency of 48 kilohertz. It has a very large memory capacity. Each of the instrument is individually calibrated, and the battery duration is such that it allows you for up to 6 months, I think, of measurements. Now, basically, you get limited by memory before you get limited by battery duration. Next, please. So this is one conceptual drawing of the instrument, how the instrument looks like when it's deployed. This is mostly related to the way that we were at the IOF putting these instruments. So at the bottom you have the mooring, the weight, the anchor, and then it's connected with you will see it on the next photo. There is a release system. Above the release system, there is an instrument. Above the instrument, these are deep water buoyancy buoys, which allow you, when you open the release system at the bottom, you can recover the instrument just by using these buoys. In this way, you essentially don't need a diver. You get the entire instrument mooring with this technology. Next, please. So these photos are showing you the deployment of the instrument in December 2020, close to UNIA gas platform in the Northern Adriatic. On the left picture, you can see the entire system. These are buoys, and behind you can see the release system, and at the end there is also CTD, which was used as I said, at the beginning and at the end of each deployment, and then on the second photo you can see as the instrument is going down. Next, please. And this is what it looks like when you look from the bottom. So you have the weight, as I said. Then the second, the white cylinder is a release system. Next to the release system, there is a container with a very strong and thin rope. And above the release system, there is an instrument. And above the instrument, you can't see them are buoys. When you deploy the instrument, you just put everything down at the sea bottom. When you recover the instrument, you open the release system by using acoustic signal at the bottom. This release system lets the instrument and the buoys go up to the surface, and it also brings the rope on the surface so you can pull out the weight as well. Next, please. As I said, each of these deployment and recovery and also everything was defined between the partners. So before we started with measurements, we agreed on the deployment data sheets, on the recovery data sheets. So each of the partner, when it was putting all the data from one deployment period, also put the deployment and recovery data sheets. And these metadata were then used during the data processing. This is the example of I think the first deployment in the Northern Adriatic close to Ivana Base Station. Next, please. And besides these shared protocols for the deployment of the instrument, we also had a lot of discussion and exchange of opinions and also expertise in the data analysis before we started to analyze all the data using the web application on Venice server. And these new algorithms and the data processing system was also developed within the project. And besides that, colleagues from Venice, especially Antonio, developed also tools to statistically analyze and present the output results, which became really efficient after the data processes, also in presenting all the results that you get from this enormous data set. Next, please. So now something about the data coverage. As you can see, on all 9 stations, we had data coverage between 61 and 95%. The best data coverage was for stations operated by Blue World Institute, which were about 90%. But all other stations, as you will actually see that there is a pretty good data coverage concerning the dispersion of these stations, and some of them are really far from the coast and so on. Next. If we focus on these 3 which had the coverage lower than 70%, there are actual explanations why this coverage was relatively lower than other stations. So, next, please. So, for example, Paloma mooring station, which was positioned at the Gulf of Trieste, was deployed next to Paloma oceanographic buoy. This is a long-term oceanographic buoy which is operated in the Gulf of Trieste, but luckily, it was sunk in the end of November last year. I think that the ship collided with the buoy, and since the hydrophone was positioned next to the buoy, the hydrophone wasn't protected anymore by the fact that the ships were avoiding the buoy. So our colleagues from Malta decided to remove the instrument, and they redeployed it in February 2021, when the anchorage of the Paloma buoy was secured again. So that's one of the reasons why there are several months missing in Paloma station. The instrument that IOF deployed at Ivana D monitoring station in the Northern Adriatic, the one that was deployed during the second deployment in July 2020, is still actually not recovered. Namely, this gas platform was also sunk during the extreme Sirocco storm at the beginning of December 2020. And from that part on, area had a very limited access because it is controlled by not only by the government, but also by INAGIP, who are responsible for this platform. So we couldn't access the location in the time. We tried to recover the instrument recently, but we still didn't find it at the sea bottom. And therefore, we resumed measurements at the nearby location at Ivana A platform in December 2020, and from that time on, we followed almost the entire coverage. And finally, Ancona monitoring station was not recovered after the last deployment, so the last deployment in Ancona is missing, and that's one of the reasons why the percentage is slightly lower. And finally, these are the problems, as I said, that we had during this during this monitoring process. But the other problem, which is not only related to monitoring, but I would say to everything within this project, is COVID pandemic, which really strongly hit the region. Therefore, we had to organize all our meetings online, and especially very important discussion on data processing, which we organized online. It was really heavy task to communicate all that we needed. Next, please. Just to show you the Ivana D station, this is the photo of the station taken before it was sunk, obviously. It's one leg automated gas platform in the Northern Adriatic, so there is no crew on the platform. And this Rijeka event was really strong, and the station was found several days later at the sea bottom. These are photos from the ROV taken maybe around 10 of December. Next, please. The reason why actually this station was destroyed, it was probably because it was at the end of the commissioning of the operational period. I think it was built in 2000, and these are two meteorological information that will show you the strength of this event. So on the left side, you can see the warning issued by Croatian Meteorological and Hydrological Office, which was actually read for the entire Eastern Adriatic. And on the right side is a numerical forecast of waves for 6th of December by Lama. You can see in the center part between Ancona and Zadar, there is a part which was forecasted to have significant wave height above 6 meters. So these are, when you look at the maximum heights, I would presume if reality was close to model that these maximum heights was reaching 10 meters in the Northern Adriatic. Next, please. So another problem that we had with the data was that there were certain neither natural nor anthropogenic oscillations every 1 minute in data. There were like pulses which were generated mostly by the fact that the instrument setup in the factory wasn't probably right. So we had to remove these pulses, and thanks to our colleagues in Venice, they managed to clean the data from these things which are not something that we wanted to have there. But still, the removal of this resulted in removal of 3 seconds every 60 seconds. So basically, just because of this, we lost, I don't know, about 5% of the data on many stations. Next, please. So just to give you some final remarks about monitoring, so this project enabled the establishment of the first long-term monitoring network of underwater noise in the Adriatic, but as I wasn't really sure when I was writing this presentation, but Fantina said that it's probably also for the Mediterranean, the first monitoring network. So each step in the monitoring, deployment, and data collection was harmonized between the partners and with precisely defined protocols. The data are stored at 2 locations, securing their safe storage, and despite serious problems that we had, so COVID and sinking of Paloma oceanographic buoy, even a gas platform, overall data coverage is still larger than 60%, and at some station even larger than 90%. And this project resulted in cross-border cooperation in the establishment of the know-how that will be essential in the future research and the regional cooperation. Next, please. Thank you. If you have questions, please.
Okay, thank you all. I would like to invite you downstairs to take a coffee break, and we are back in half hour.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Because I cannot hear anyone in the meeting. Are we still having the meeting? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Santina Madricardo from CNR, from the Institute of Marine Sciences of the CNR in Venice. It's a pleasure to be here at the end of this very nice project that we concluded, that will be concluded just in a week. I want to thank all the organizers for hosting us and to organize this final conference on behalf of all the CNR colleagues that are connected online. So I want to show here, also together with the Blue World colleagues, the Soundscape results. This is also this is summarized. Of course, we have a lot of results. We try to summarize the more important ones. Please. Okay. So first of all, we have seen before the concept of Soundscape that was based on the monitoring for the first time in the Northern Adriatic Sea. So we should remember that before this project, the information we had about underwater noise in the Northern Adriatic Sea was sparse and just very, on very isolated points in time and space. So this is the first thing that we did, as was shown before, is to set up the monitoring network, the sound propagation modeling, but also the evaluation of impacts. We will show you what we did, and we want to arrive at the mitigation scenarios. So please. So as we saw before, it was shown, we not only shared the same instruments and the same protocols, the same metadata for the stations and the collection of data, but we also shared protocols for data analysis, and we used the same methods. So I think this is one of the most important results of the project, which is an Interreg project of collaboration between Italy and Croatia. We really managed to set up a network completely shared between Italy and Croatia. This, I think, is one of the best results of the project. But we also, we also elaborated new algorithms to analyze this data that can be seen and analyzed in different ways. You see here different ways, different statistics that you can do on the data. Of course, I don't want to go into detail on this, but there is a lot of work that can be done, and we already prepared all the tools to do it. So please. So what we want to say is that we agreed among the partners that the data after the end of the project will be published, will be fair, so findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable according to the EU policy on fair data. Also we want to share the codes that we use, the algorithms that we use, so that other people, other scientists can use this data, please. So it's difficult to summarize all the results, of course, in such a short time. I just want to show you a picture that summarizes the annual noise level for the Northern Adriatic Sea. You see here, we have collected the data. This is the data of all the stations for all the frequencies. We have collected from 50 hertz to 20,000 hertz, but we will now focus on four 1/3 octave band frequencies that are where we focus our analysis, that are this 63, 125, 250 hertz, and 4,000 hertz. So please. Of course, we have chosen 63 and 185 hertz because these are the frequencies that are recommended by the Marine Strategy Framework Directive for the descriptor 11.2 that we've seen before. So this Soundscape, one of the main objectives was to support the monitoring of this descriptor. We have focused our analysis on this frequency, but we also have chosen 250 hertz because 250 hertz from the literature studies, we have seen that it's really in the hearing sensitivity of not only of the Caretta caretta, which was one of the target species of the Soundscape project together with the Turcia truncatus, but also it's on the sensitivity range of commercial species such as the herring you see on the left and the brown nigger on the central. So it's on the central plot. So you see, it's also a frequency that can be really important for commercial species. Please. So we have also selected on the basis of literature studies the 4,000 hertz because we evaluated that the possible impact of anthropogenic noise could be relevant for the bottlenose dolphins that was the other target species of Soundscape. Please. What I want to say is that, okay, you have seen an annual average of the data, but of course, we have also plots for each station. For each, here you can see we have monthly average for each station of the levels, of the sound levels of each station of the network. Of course, we can do all kinds of averages because we collected the data continuously for more than 1 year, actually for almost 15 months. So more than what we promised in the application form. And so all kind of analysis on the temporal variability can be done. This is an example for the frequencies recommended by the octave bands recommended by the Marine Strategy Framework Directive. But please, but we can also do an analysis on the distribution of noise on the space. So we can see here, for example, for the frequency, for the 1/3 octave band centered on the 63 hertz frequency, you can see which are the stations that are more noisy. So you see the bigger, so the larger circles indicate the noisier stations for this frequency. And we have, we can map so we can see where it's more noisy in the Northern Adriatic Sea. And what we did together with ARPA Friuli Venezia Giulia, that unfortunately could not come today, but I want to stress that they did really a comparison between this value, the values that we collected, because we didn't know if the Northern Adriatic Sea was noisy or not. No? So before we started Soundscape, we didn't know this. And so after that, we can say that the Northern Adriatic Sea has similar or lower values compared, for example, with the Naples Gulf, with Lampedusa, or with the North Sea. We have to remember that the data were collected during the COVID time, so where the traffic was also, less intense. So these values may be not the real values of normal time, so to say. So maybe they're lower than it's normally. So please. We see also here for this spatial distribution for the different frequency, 125, and you see that, for example, the station of Split and Trieste are almost the most noisy, please. Or even for 4,000, sorry, 12,050, okay, go ahead. And also for 4,000, 1/3 octave band, you see also the distribution here of the noise. So please, what we can say is that the difference between the 90 and the noise that we have for 90% of the time in the Northern Adriatic Sea and the noise that we have for 10% of the time in the Northern Adriatic Sea. So the difference between the background noise, so to say, and the noise, the exceptional noise, no? So we see that it can vary between, there can be, in some stations, we have a difference more than 30 dB. So it means that the anthropogenic components of the noise, it's really, really important. Please. What I want to stress here is that we not only monitored, as we said, the noise in the field for the first time, but for the first time, we set up, together with our partner, Quiet Oceans, we set up a full data flow to calibrate mathematical model that can get the data from the station, that get the measured data, to have really a mathematical model, to have the distribution, the propagation of the noise in all the Northern Adriatic Sea. So we do not have only the information in the stations where we measure, but we have the information, the full Northern Adriatic Sea, and we produced, you know, we had really we use also the best calibrated oceanographic models, three-dimensional oceanographic models, to provide the data to Quanops, so the platform that plots that computes the propagation of the noise, so with temperature and salinity, and all the environmental and IS data that are the sources of the model. Please. We have seen that, we have seen that the model works very well in the stations that were calibrated. It still has some problems related to maybe the input data that were not perfect, the IS data were not perfect, or the bathymetry data were not perfect. So, but the point is that we have now a calibrated model that gives us a distribution of the noise for the full Northern Adriatic Sea, where we before had no knowledge about that. Please. So we produced a really large atlas of more than 2,000 maps that are available for the 12 months of the monitoring, starting from January 2020 to December 2020. We did a full solar year, and we did the 4 frequencies I was talking about, the 63, 125, 250, 4,000, 1/3 octave bands, and the 7 percentiles that give us an indication of the time where we have a noise over a certain threshold. So we have 2 kinds of maps, baseline and natural noise level. So baseline includes all the sources of noise. So, you know, IS data, anthropogenic data, and so on. Instead, natural noise levels include only the environmental noise. So we have 2 types of data, and also we have done a special study on the Locini area, where we had the model had a more refined spatial grid, very high resolution, a very high temporal resolution as well. And we produced a lot of maps that we are now analyzing to use. Okay, let's go on. So here you see a baseline versus natural maps, and you see the distribution in the Northern Adriatic Sea. In the upper part you have baseline, so including of anthropogenic noise, and in the lower part you have natural maps, where you practically switch off the anthropogenic contribution. And you see that you know, the difference gives an indication of anthropogenic noise in the Northern Adriatic Sea. You see the highest impact is, the highest noise is in the part where there is more traffic. So please. Here as well, you can see that Soundscape provides the excess levels, of course, the excess distribution study area. So this is a large part of the Northern Adriatic Sea is affected by human-made noise pressure during spring and summer. You see here the distribution for the different months, please. So Soundscape really contributed to the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, as Vlado was showing before, and please. And I want to also say that Soundscape elaborated some recommendation for future research. This was done by ARPA Friuli Venezia Giulia. They asked me to show this, because we really, for the implementation of Marine Strategy Framework Directive concerning the descriptor 11.2, we need always to have different monitoring stations. We need to keep the monitoring on monthly or seasonal basis. We need to monitor all the 1/3 octave bands for the initial assessment, and not only the 2 frequencies that we have done. And we need the long-term monitoring, at least a year scale, as we did before. Sorry, can you go back a second? Can you go back? I just finished now. Okay, so we need to also evaluate, to set up some thresholds to see what is the maximum noise that is acceptable. And we need to introduce also citizen science AS data or some sort of this to really include all the boats that do not have AS data. And I leave now the floor to Blue World Institute to explain this point.
Thank you, Martina. So I'm not clicking here then. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, so besides all this, which is already a tremendous amount of work, something that we did is we were recording the reference noise produced by 7 different types of vessels. And all the types of vessels were always recorded in exactly the same circumstances. So we had 2 defined tracks with a defined distance from the hydrophones, and then all the boats were driving the same track for 4 times. And basically the idea is that we have these reference recordings, which can then be used in to kind of support the mathematical models. Next slide, please. Basically, as most of this sound is produced by the vessels, of course, one of the aims was to record physical presence of vessels in the study area. So we used this stress and lossing as kind of case study. This was done by theodolites, which were placed on 2 observation points on island of Lošinj, so that we could observe both east and west side. I don't know how clear it is here, but you can see the visible sectors. And this is just one example of what was recorded. So basically, we were taking the snapshots in time several times a day to record what kinds of boats were present at which location in the study area at what time. And again, this can be used as an input for modeling to better understand the sound and its influence. Next slide, please. Then to add more, also data from AIS was used as a kind. This is basically data just on the locations, locations of and types of vessels, but this is used as a proxy for sound. And basically, besides the AIS data here, also the estimation was done for how many boats are actually missed. So again, to kind of support the modeling procedures. Next slide. And then we're coming now to basically the influence of sound on target species. In this case, the target species were bottlenose dolphin and loggerhead turtle. The data about these species is now collected in a completely different way. So now we are moving away from hydrophones. This is basically done by doing the area surveys with a small research boat, visually scanning for presence of target species. When we do spot them, we note down the locations, and then basically we have records of where we were navigating. We know where the species were observed. And from this, we can calculate the encounter rates. This is basically a measure of how likely a target species is to be found in a certain part of the study area. On the left, this is just one example of a heat map, which represents the encounter rates. Darker shades mean greater probability of finding the animals there. And of course, you can relate this with this spatial distribution of sound. So again, this is used as an input for modeling. Next slide, please. And then we're coming to modeling, and this is again just so basically what was done in Soundscape was habitat suitability modeling. These models actually predict which parts of the area are a suitable habitat for a certain species. And basically, these maps here show you just one sample of one of the models, because the models were run for different scenarios, including the anthropogenic factors or without the anthropogenic factors, with noise data, without noise data, and then again with 2 different kinds of data about the species and so on. So basically, this enables us to see, you know, how those environmental and anthropogenic factors, in this case sound, how do they affect the distribution of target species. And the next slide, please. Besides the distribution of species, the influence on the vocalization on bottlenose dolphins was investigated. And here again, as expected, significant differences were found in how bottlenose dolphins, how they change their vocal behavior depending on the time of year, because in Sres-Lošinj area, we have huge differences in the numbers of boats between summer and winter. Summer, of course, being the noisier season, and this actually does reflect on how dolphins, how do they communicate and how do they use sound in general. Yeah, confirming also the earlier studies that sound actually does have effect on bottlenose dolphins. And I think that's all from me. Sorry, next slide. Yeah, this is just the overall view of what I said, how the underwater noise intensities, how do they change during the year, and you can see that there are big differences between the summer and winter, or what we call the touristic or non-touristic season. Thank you.
So, please, next, please. We have seen the impact on the pilot area, but now I want to show you how we can also assess and understand what is the impact on the whole area. So to do this analysis, we use the tools for MSP GeoPlatform that is where the data were made publicly available and where we can analyze, so overlap the different layers of data and understand what are the measures that we can get, please. So to do this, we followed this workflow. First of all, we identified the areas where we want to do the analysis. We did the analysis in the Northern Adriatic, and we did the analysis for the target species hotspots and obviously for the Natura 2000 sites. And then we, in these areas of analysis, we evaluate the current condition. So what is now the current condition for the noise, in terms of noise, and we use the maps obtained with the underwater noise modeling method. And we then extracted from this analysis what are the extra noise, what we were telling before, so the noise really related to the anthropogenic activity, and we elaborated what is a pressure index to understand what are the areas that are more affected by noise. And we identified attention areas, so we really must be careful with the noise, and in those areas we analyze all the sources in order to obtain the mitigation measures that we need. Please. So the identification, as I said, we have here you see the distribution of the target species, the hotspots of the distribution, but also you see the Natura 2000 sites, please. Back. And here you see how we obtained from the different maps that were produced before by the modeling tool. We obtained a mean for the whole area in this case, but we could do it for all the study areas that we were showing. And we did it for the 250 hertz for Careta and 4,000 hertz for Truncatus, please. And as I said, we can estimate the extra noise, the anthropogenic component, taking the baseline minus the natural. And here we can do it for all, of course, for all the months and the different, two different frequencies, please. For all this, we can, so from these maps, we can obtain these pressure curves. The pressure curves give an estimate, for example, here you see that dashed black line represents, for example, the limit where the 50% of the whole area, so the Northern Adriatic Sea, as about extra noise, so about greater or and equal to 7.1 dB. So with these curves, we can, assess spatially which areas are over a certain threshold, please. And then we can define a pressure index, that is the area below these curves. And the pressure index gives us an indication of which areas are really under pressure, so to say, by noise. And you see here the different areas that we collected. The thick blue line is the whole Northern Adriatic Sea. Then you have the Natura 2000 sites and the target hotspots. But you can see this is the full year, the full 2020, from January to December. And you see that the pressure index have a temporal behavior. Before the lockdown, the pressure index are higher, and then they become lower, of course, because of the reduction of traffic. Please. So where you have the maximum of the maximum values of the pressure index, you can identify the the attention areas that we were talking about before. These two are the attention area for the Caretta Corretta, please. And these instead are the attention area of the Truncatus. And you see this area are where really we should be careful. Go ahead, please. And on each of these areas, we have analyzed the traffic, and we have really AS data. From the AS data, we have really extracted which are the boats, the vessels that contribute more to the noise, and in particular using also a model. We can say this is for the full Northern Adriatic, but you can do it for all the area where we did the analysis. And you can see, for example, for the whole Adriatic area, you have, for example, that cargo have, that impact in terms of decibel more, and you can do a really specific analysis for the area, please. And so you can really, thanks to this analysis, we had compiled a catalog of all the possible mitigation measures. The possible mitigation measures can be different, can be strategic, they can include specific noise mitigation objectives within the maritime plans, for example, or they can be, for example, financial or supporting measures like promoting and financing innovative technologies to reduce noise emissions. Please. Here is an example to give you a hint of what we can do with this kind of tools, of these maritime spatial planning tools. For example, for a target area of the Caretta that we saw, okay, this area is an attention area. What we can do, we know that the main sources are cargo and tanker, sorry. And we can say that short-term measures could be, for example, to suggest a speed reduction, which would decrease the noise level. Or on the medium long-term measures, we should consider rerouting, so moving a little bit the routes, or establish particularly sensitive sea areas. This is an example for the Caretta species, but then for the Truncatus, we see that the attention area is where the red, green circle is there, the red, and we see that in this area, the main sources instead are recreational boats, as we were seeing before, or fishing boats or cargo. And in this case, short-term measures could be limitation to recreational boating or speed reduction, and medium long-term measure could be, for example, establish areas to be avoided where the traffic should not go, or establish particularly sensitive sea areas. This is an example of mitigation measures that we can elaborate on the basis of really scientific data that we collected during this project, please. So we have to keep in mind that marine traffic is increasing in the Adriatic, but all over the world. So we need to understand that also regulating the speed of the vessel for the Adriatic Sea could reduce the noise. But of course, the tools that we have developed in Soundscape can produce guidelines for marine space management and mitigation policy. Please. So the conclusion is what I want to say is that Soundscape created a new infrastructure between Italy and Croatia to transfer the knowledge, really the scientific knowledge, scientific data on the underwater noise and its impact to the stakeholders and policymakers to have a blue economy that is really sustainable. Thank you. Questions? Too many results.
Next amendment 27 is in collaboration with US. Now you can see some photos and posters about different ways of performance. The book will be on color. After your corner, also 21. Even the performance in installation. And then next month, October 2021, with the collaboration of CNS many other partners of communication, recognize and collaboration with the main organization, who are organizations like the United States and the Croatian and Italian, Croatian and Italian, in general. And these are all about diversity. This is the target group, which is not the final document, because I'm looking for not communication report. The target group also some dissemination materials, like the poster, the flyer, and last but not least, the social media Soundscape Results. That's the part and the part that the communication so that it is local and national media to attract the attention of the exploration and business. Some examples are television, EUSAIR, and the National Corporation in television, radio, and also press. And thank you very much for your attention and presentation. It was very pleasure working with all the channels. And now I will show you some great videos about different ways performance based in this series of Thank you, and see you soon.
you saw presentations about results and achievements of Interreg project Soundscape, projects performed by Italian and Croatian institutions, and these very new, I can say, topics, I mean in measurement in this part of Mediterranean even, and I hope that these activities will continue in near future, and I hope that our knowledge about influence of underwater sound will be better in a main objective to protect our marine environment in general, and especially protect influence of underwater noise. So you saw some measures which can resolve this influence to reduce them on the minimum level, and in that case it will be very I think useful. For one of the example was to reroute of traffic and also slow speed of especially maybe touristic recreational boats, because you know during summer you can see very close to coast island very speedy boats. They produce high value of noise. So in that case, I do hope that this collaboration will continue in future. And at the end, I want to thank organizer of this final meeting and final conference of Soundscape project, which we are attend in Rijeka, and also colleagues which present through video channels, on the remote video channels, and thanks all of you to come, all of you to present different results and achievements. And I have to say at the end that even I was continuously involved in all activities, that it was at the end when we summarize our results and achieves. I have to say that in one way I'm proud of our success in analyzing of influence of underwater waves on biodiversity, on especially very sensitive fauna in the sea, and in generally on ecological status of north part of Adriatics. Once again, I want to thank you, all of you. Thanks Institute for Health of Primorje-Gorski County, and all of you to come, and I wish you all of you to back way to your home to return safe, and hoping that will we collaborate in a future, maybe in a near future, and it will be very bad other things. The thing that our consortium who start with a very unique, I think, new type of activity on Adriatic Sea, and even as presented at one presentation, that it's practically unique, the longest long-term measurement of the noise in the whole Mediterranean, and especially modeling of very sensitive species, and also modeling, spatial temporary modeling of noise who produce human during its activity. Aim of all our activity is to protect our environment for our future generation, and in that case to care more than in the past about this very sensitive nature, and it can help also for development of tourism, exploitation of resources, and safe life in this region. Okay, thank you very much, and hope to see you in the future. Thank you once again, and bye.